So I have this like thing where I always have to play the intro twice, like
Yeah, I know.
twice fully.
Yeah, because it's only like 50, it's only like 10 seconds,
It's only
really.
10
So it's
seconds.
like 20 seconds, but I get it, and it's a banger, so we got to run through it. We got
Like
to say
it
hi.
caught the ending of it, but I was like, I still need two full times. It's what I got
Yeah.
going on. So, but this is for exposure. I am Blair Pacheco. I only own one T-shirt. That is Pluggo, my incredible co-host.
So for those, this is For Exposure, your Love Wrestling Independent Wrestling Podcast. We are recorded today, but we did our normal show earlier, and I changed in between said shirts literally 20 minutes ago because I have this really weird thing of like, if I do multiple streams, I need to change because I don't want people to, I don't know what it is. Last week I did 2 streams in the same day and changed shirts in between each stream that day too. And my wife, Mrs. Pluggo, was like, why change? It's the same day. I said, I don't know, different streams, people get different shirts. So
Yeah,
that's just how I operate, I guess.
that's okay. We all have our own thing, so it doesn't matter. Mine is playing the intro 2 full times.
Luckily,
Yours
yeah,
is outfit changes.
luckily I have like a billion hats and different shirt combinations, so I can always look different and fresh for each stream. Just know that's the link I go to for you, the viewer. But go ahead and let's get us going here, Blair.
Yeah, we've got a special guest today. I was very fortunate a few weeks back to have this person join me on the Grainmaker podcast. We talked about what they've been up to, what they're doing, especially with the deathmatch scene here in Canada. They're doing some incredible work. They've got an upcoming show that's happening. I guess this will be next week, right before the day before All Out in Toronto. They're putting on an incredible show. There's some incredibly talented wrestlers announced for it. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about Canadian Deathmatch. So without further ado, we're going to bring Shawn from Canadian Deathmatch on in 1 second. So get ready. Hey, Shawn, how's it going?
Hey, how are you guys? Thanks so much for having me.
I'm doing great.
Shawn, are you disappointed that he didn't play the intro twice for you?
I am so disappointed.
Okay.
Is it just for you, Blair? You play it twice, but when a guest comes on, they only get once after you just talked about how you need it twice? We're off to a hot start.
If they need it twice, they're going to get it twice. Okay, now it's better. Now we can fully go ahead. Shawn, how are things going?
Good, yeah. Things are very busy right now. We just finished a show in August, and as you said, we've got this big show coming up in Toronto, our Toronto debut. So we're super excited for that. Planning that has been busy, but everything's going smoothly.
That's awesome. I know, like when we chatted, you kind of talked about the getting into the deathmatch wrestling and the promotion itself. But for those of you for the viewers who may not have tuned in for that, how did Canadian Deathmatch come to be?
Yeah, so I am a longtime kind of wrestling fan of wrestling history, that kind of thing. I was working with a more traditional wrestling promotion. We decided to go our separate ways, and I kind of said to myself, like, okay, if I'm going to keep going with this wrestling thing, how can I stand out in a market? So I'm in Hamilton that has a ton of wrestling already, and big fan of deathmatch wrestling, and felt like there was a place for a deathmatch specific promotion, not only in Hamilton but Ontario, and then knock on wood throughout Canada as we grow. So that's kind of where the idea came from. It all started with this idea of putting on like a once a year tournament. We were going to do a tournament, and then kind of keep that going once a year. But the excitement around the tournament was so strong that it felt like we could do this more often. So we decided to take that idea, that germ of an idea for a tournament, and turn it into a full-fledged promotion.
That's incredible. I mean, because the past few years, deathmatch wrestling is really something that you've seen it. It's taken off. You're getting, it's not just a match, but you're getting these full shows, and now you're getting like full on promotions, like you're running with Canadian Deathmatch. So the past few years has really seen a big time boom in the deathmatch scene.
Well, I think you're seeing it a lot more at least tidbits of it on the big stage too. If you look at AEW, some of the things they've done, they had Nick Gage on a show. I mean,
Mhm.
they had Chris Jericho taking light tubes. If you watched ROH Death Before Dishonor, you saw there was glass involved in that show with QT Marshall. I
And
mean,
Paul
tidbits.
Walter Hauser had no business
Yeah,
going that hard in that match, by the way. That's
yeah,
crazy.
that was a full-fledged death match in some ways, like the use of
Yeah.
the glass, the use of the tacks. I mean, you're seeing kind of tidbits of it kind of sneak into the mainstream of wrestling now, and I think that's a sign that this kind of wrestling is being more accepted.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know for me, like when you sit down and you watch deathmatch wrestling, I know from the outsider's perspective, and I'm sure you've heard all of the stigma around it that it's this. But if you really sit down and watch these matches and break them down, there's a lot of psychology involved to it, and it's not just which is something that I'm sure you dance with a promotion of that magnitude is like how do you go with okay that's a really cool spot and it would be insane and it would be a viral moment opposed to but does it make sense in said match?
Yeah, it is a tough balance because we do try for the most part to choose talent that actually has a wrestling background. I think deathmatch all over the world kind of has these different kind of sects that do different things, right? Like I think there's parts of the American deathmatch scene where it's just kind of hitting each other with shit. And then there's other people in that scene who are fantastic wrestlers who use weaponry to tell their stories. Um, I think in Japan, like they still feel like wrestling matches for the most part, and then they work in kind of weapons to kind of accentuate the story. For us, I think that's what we're trying to lean more towards that side, like by choosing actual wrestlers who
Mhm.
when they're not working for us or working for another deathmatch promotion are wrestling every weekend. So that's part of our whole thing is to choose guys who know how to tell a story, who know how to use weapons to do what they already know how to do. Now there is talent on our roster that we kind of have to protect from themselves. I think of Hardcore. I don't know if you guys are super familiar with Hardcore. He's a deathmatch wrestler out of Buffalo. And he's a guy who will do anything. He will,
Yeah.
anything you asked him to do, he would do. But also, he comes to the table with 10 different ideas where you're like, okay, well, we can use pieces of this, but
Mhm.
this might also kill you or someone else. So maybe we try it this way, or maybe we need to space things out here. Like a big part of our whole thing is educating the crowd too, right? Because we don't have a whole lot of a deathmatch scene here. Like when we're having kind of those bigger, dangerous spots, for lack of a better word, it's important for us to make sure that everybody, as much as they can, feels safe, including the audience. So we put out, like we talked about Blair, like an FAQ before the last show,
Mhm.
just being like, if you're standing in the front row, like wear long pants. If you don't have eye protection, like, if you're going to be close to the action, maybe that's something you should consider like these kind of things you wouldn't have to consider going to a normal wrestling show or
Mhm.
traditional wrestling show.
Which is definitely something I've noticed over the course of maybe the last couple of years. I know IWS out in Canada does a really great job of being like, if you're in the first three rows, this is the requirement.
Yeah.
I saw that GCW last weekend, as we're recording this last week at Homecoming, eye protection in the front row for the crowd. So that's been really cool to see. That helps
Yeah.
keep you guys safe as well as keep the fans safe. Now you mentioned real quick, and I know Blair's got a question, but I had to piggyback off it. You mentioned the hardcore. You said he'd bring you 10 things to the table, and you kind of have to talk him down. Maybe could you elaborate a little bit on maybe what's the craziest thing somebody's gone? I really want to do this, and you just go, that's probably a little too far.
So I don't know about the craziest, but on our first no ring show, Hardcore actually broke his leg. He
Oh.
took, if you know the Tower of London, which is essentially like a cutter where your legs are kind of on the rope. For us, his legs were on the stage. He took the cutter. He landed right on his I don't know femur or hip area, and he broke his leg. And you can hear the smack of his leg hitting the ground like in the video.
Ugh.
So that is a move that in hindsight, like probably should have told him not to do. A lot of us were feeling like when he told us that that's something he wanted to do, I definitely had trepidation, but trusted him to take care of himself. And
Mhm.
obviously he can take care of himself. this was just an unfortunate accident that, you know, probably I'll take some responsibility for. Should have seen that coming and been like, you know what, maybe we do this instead, or maybe we can put something underneath of it to kind of soften that landing a little bit.
Hmm. Well, I mean, you mentioned, starting off in like Hamilton, that area there. What was the reception like when you first announced, Canadian Deathmatch coming to the forefront and being a deathmatch promotion, especially in a more traditional market?
Yeah, I think Hamilton is the perfect city for it because we are a fairly gritty city. You know, we have that blue collar working
Yeah.
class energy to this city. And I think the people here, as much as they love traditional wrestling, also have a hunger for kind of the violence that we bring. So I think there was, right off the hop, there was a lot of excitement. I think some traditional wrestling fans are just never going to like us, and that's
Mhm.
okay. Like, those aren't the people that we're trying to appeal to.
Oh.
We know that we're never going to be mainstream. Like, we are for the people who, like a little bit more gnarliness in their wrestling. So yeah, I think overall the reception has been fantastic. And show two, we went to St. Catharines, which is about an hour up the road, another kind of smaller blue class working city, and they loved us too. So this area has definitely been very good to us.
Yeah, I know in Winnipeg, I mean, Winnipeg is a very blue collar city. When
Yes.
you look at like, for favorite hockey players, people are going to love that, third pairing defenseman who lays his body on the line more than they're going to like the guy who scores 40 goals. It's just the way the city's built. So like, I totally get that vibe where like, hey, a blue collar city is going to be drawn to that. They're going to be drawn to like the very do it yourself sort of aspect of it, the very punk rock vibe, because deep down, I mean, that's some of the kind of same sort of um same fibers almost that bring up that blue collar ethic.
Yeah, exactly. Like, our city is known for, as much as we're like a hard fighting city, we also have that small town feel still. And I think Winnipeg has that too, where it feels like you have a community still that you
Yeah.
can't necessarily capture in, say, a Toronto or, I don't know, Montreal or Vancouver, one of the really big cities. But for us, like, and I think Winnipeg is the same, where it kind of has that small town value still, where the community wants you to do well and will lift you up if they believe in you.
Mhm.
Excuse me, sorry, I was
No problem.
choking. I'm choking on my own words over here. So you mentioned that you're making your Toronto debut around
Yes.
All Out weekend. I'm always fascinated, and we're seeing this trend, which I think is a great trend, where these big shows, these big promotions, AEW, WWE, all this, they go to these cities, and then
Hmm.
all of the indies come around it and make it a big weekend. I've had the privilege of going to Royal Rumble earlier this year, and
Yep.
Combat Pro Wrestling did a show right around. We had a little death match. We had a little bit of everything, a little bit of flavor. How do you fit into that? How does that become to be? How do you get involved in like, okay, like, do you just go, hey, All Out's running in Toronto, let's find a venue, or do you partner up with some other promotions and make like a home base and just get into their card, so to speak, or into the lineup?
Yeah, so I can only speak from my own experience. I don't know how every independent promotion does it, but for us, Invoke Pro Wrestling, which is a kind of a company that loosely based in Vancouver, and I'm friends with the people there. They kind of came to us and said, "Hey, we really want to run in Toronto. We think that All Out Weekend would be an excellent opportunity. Would you be interested in partnering with us on this?" And we looked at we did our research. We looked at the other promotions that they've worked with, teamed with. We love the work that they've done out there, and it felt like a really good opportunity for us to partner with a company or a brand that really kind of believes in the do-it-yourself ethics that we believe in, and put on something bigger than ourselves. So by working together, we can put on a show that we can bring in this great talent. We can still have the Canadian Deathmatch feel to it all. And doing it on that weekend, obviously, you've already got so many thousands of wrestling fans,
Mhm.
both from Toronto and from, across Canada and probably the United States coming into town. So it just makes sense from a business standpoint to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I know for myself, I was very excited when, you mentioned that, you had an upcoming show. And then when I found out that it was going to be in Toronto for all of the weekend, like I'm headed out there. And as soon as I found that, I was like, shit, now I got to go. Like I was very
Yeah.
excited to hear about that.
Yeah.
It's now become a fixture in my Toronto plans of things I'm looking forward to. So like, that's the kind of
So
thing
glad.
you have people coming in from all across North America for this event. So
Yeah.
it's a great opportunity for you to like show off what Canadian death matches bring to the table.
Are you saying it's
Yeah.
good for him to get some exposure?
Yes, I
Wow,
am.
well played. I'm impressed.
It's not just a clever name, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity for us to get our, brand, as much as I kind of hate that word, maybe our style of wrestling in
Yeah.
front of so many new fans who are going to be in town, and both people who are in our market and people who are not necessarily directly in our market. We find that, we have a lot of people who are even outside of Ontario who really want to support us. Like we sell a lot of t-shirts and DVDs to people who are just like, hey, we really love what you're doing. We hope one day maybe you can make it out here to, Winnipeg or Regina or, wherever. We got
Mhm.
fans all over Canada, and they're like, let me support you now so that one day you can maybe get here, sort of thing, which is a good feeling.
See, I love the fact that, something like DVDs, you guys are still bringing that to the table, especially in this day and age where so much has gone online to just streaming. But like, you see it with even, you go on Apple Music or Spotify, and there's going to be songs or bands that aren't on there, and
Yeah,
at least with the physical copy, a DVD, it's in your hand. You own that. You could put it on whenever you want. And I personally, like, I love going to the used DVD stores and
yeah,
flipping through the wrestling DVDs, seeing what I can find, because like people are more willing to get rid of that stuff now. And hey, the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure is very, very prevalent nowadays. So like I try to snatch all this stuff up as much as I can.
yeah. And I'm the same way. Like I have a healthy wrestling VHS collection still. I'm always scouring eBay and the like to see what's out there, or we have Kijiji or Facebook
Yeah.
Marketplace, whatever, just seeing what's out there. So I am a huge fan of physical media, whether it's books or DVDs or whatever. Um, and I think wrestling fans in general are collectors.
Mhm.
So I mean, as you can see, Pluggo's got tons of
What,
stuff.
what are you talking about?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
exactly. And I'm the same way. Like I love having all my paraphernalia and all this wrestling stuff. I think wrestling fans in general like to have all this stuff. So the more that,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously as a business, it makes sense to have more products that are purchasable. But I also think it's a way for fans to feel connected to us. Like it's a really important part of our brand, our do-it-yourself brand, is that you can message the Canadian Deathmatch page anytime, and you'll get a response fairly quickly. Blair, you know that.
Yeah.
I'm test
You
that
can
right
message
now.
us like we are part of the community. We're not like above the community that we kind of service.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think the physical media thing is definitely coming back to it. Now, some of this stuff that I have behind me, like, is just like, oh, it was a good deal and I grabbed it. But like, if you
Yeah,
go to the Canadian Deathmatch show and you purchase that DVD, that fan is going to go, I was at that show when I bought this DVD, and oh my god,
yes,
this match happened or this spot happened. Like a lot of this stuff, you can go, there's a story behind it, and like, you know, Mrs. Pluggo always asks me like, "Oh, what's that worth and what's that worth?" And I always tell her, but she's like, "You're never gonna sell it anyway, so why do you care that much about it?" And I'm like, "You're right. It's just cool to look it up, but I always, there's always a story behind that stuff. So that's a really cool like touch that helps set you apart from maybe other promotions that don't have that physical media, because then they, you don't have that same story. Like, oh yeah, I found it on YouTube, but it's
right.
cool to be like, I got that physical deal, or I got it signed by the guy that
Yeah.
whatever it may be."
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think it does give you that connection, especially in smaller cities like ours, where not every promotion has physical media. Most promotions I would say today don't have physical media. I haven't been to a GCW show in a long time, but I don't know if they still have DVDs of every show they put on
Yeah.
or anything like that. So it's really a way for us to stand out, make a little more money than we would on streaming, and it gives you that connection to the show. Like you said, Pluggo, you can be there, you can get them to sign it at the next show that you come to, right?
Mhm.
And then it's just a way to feel connected to this community that we're building.
One of the coolest things that I've been able to witness and be a part of is the promotion. I do commentary for WPW.
Mhm.
They released a DVD like early on, but what they've started doing is releasing events on VHS as a collector's item.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, and I think that it's different, it's unique, and it
Yeah.
really gives you that like
Hold on, stop, full stop, full
yeah.
stop. For those watching the show that
Oh,
may not know, a VHS is for VCRs that were a thing way back in the day before DVD players. And if you don't know what a DVD player is, you might be too young to be watching right now. But
collectively, the three of us are up there in age,
yeah,
so just wait till we start talking about laser discs and
oh
Betamax.
man,
So.
8-track players.
track player.
I'm a teacher by day, and I had a student in like earlier this year asked me what a DVD was, and I've never felt so old in my entire
Oh
life.
man.
Oh,
Hey,
Like,
you're a teacher by day. Does your students know that you run a
no,
hardcore deathmatch promotion?
no, not at all. And it's funny because I had a wrestling fan in my class, and I couldn't be like, "Hey, man, I run this company. We just got to talk about Roman Reigns all day." It's like I can't be like, "Man, I'd love to see him take a tube."
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just gotta kind of bite your tongue on that.
yeah.
That's a great segue. So you just said you'd love to see Roman Reigns take a tube. Is there anybody that you like that doesn't necessarily you've never seen do deathmatch that you think might be good at it? Like you said, like taking Roman Reigns in a light tube match might be interesting. But is there anybody mainstream that you're like, I'd like to see
Ooh.
them mix it up in a death match down here for me?
I'm trying to think of who I think would be really good. I've never seen do one. Maybe he has, but the first name that came to mind is Eddie Kingston. Like I think he's the kind of guy with the kind of style that would lend itself to deathmatch really well. I'm also a big fan of kind of some of the more athletic side of deathmatch wrestlers, whether it's your Akira or Gabriel Sky, those kind of guys who have done no ring and ring stuff. So I'm trying to think of like a high flyer who would be good at it. But if one comes to mind, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, even mentioning like Eddie Kingston, like you say that name, and I'm thinking, I was like, man, I don't know if he's ever done one. If he has, it's been years ago, like
Yeah,
back when he first
Yeah.
started. So, like, it's hey,
I always like to bring that question up in the death match because we saw like years ago with Cardona, who was such a white meat baby face, like
yeah,
squeaky clean, so to speak, and how he got over on the Indies was he did that death match with Nick Gage, and it completely
yes,
turned how we saw him. So I always like to think who's that next person maybe that would make the same leap as now. Obviously, Cardona is I think more the exception than the necessary rule, but he
yeah.
definitely was one of those guys I never thought I'd see do a death match, and now he's like the death match king, so to speak.
Well, and we just saw Bear Bronson kind of make that
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
transition
Yeah, that's a
from
great
more
shout.
of your traditional wrestling to deathmatch, and I think he's instantly become one of the better deathmatch wrestlers in the world. I mean, that first one with Slade earlier this year was, one of the best death matches of the year, and the one he just had with Matt Tremont was incredible. So, I think the transition that you've got to be willing to get in there and put your life on the line. I think that's the biggest thing is just like that willingness to take the risk and not hold back at all. That's how you kind of make
Yeah.
that transition.
Bear Bronson was a great shout because he was someone who maybe wasn't utilized to his full potential, and
Yeah,
when your contract unfortunately is up and you're going back out on the indies and having to like, I don't want to say show a different side of you, but kind of put yourself out there in a way that
yeah,
you may not be comfortable with, but as soon as you do that and you start and you realize that like you have a natural knack for it, and the talk about him and just the reception that his matches have gotten has been incredible. And you have to love that for somebody who, maybe was a little unsure of what was next. And now
yeah,
he's cemented his spot there in the deathmatch scene.
yeah. And on I mean, a smaller scale, obviously, Blair, we talked about this before a little bit, but we had someone on our August show who had their first ever death match, and we had someone on our first show actually who had their first ever death match, and when they came back through the curtain, they both were like, "I feel so alive right now.
Mhm.
Wrestling hasn't made me feel like this in a long, long time." And they went from "I want to try this once" to "When can I get back in there?" and give this a go again. So I think for a lot of guys, especially on our roster, it seems like this is the thing that kind of makes them feel alive in wrestling right now.
Do you have advice maybe for, like you said, you had a couple of people that did their first show, and I don't know if there's a great way to prepare for these matchups. Like I was watching Homecoming last weekend, and I'm like, how do you even, like, I know you can think of these crazy spots. I don't know if there's a way to practice them and prepare some of these things. How do you go through that? Like that first wrestler, that deathmatch wrestler coming up to you going, so my first one, do you have advice for me? Like, what can I expect? Or you just kind of have to just rip the Band-Aid off, so to speak?
So yeah, I can only speak from my own experience. For us, we figure out where their limit is. So it's important for us to not push anyone past their comfort level, especially early on in their kind of deathmatch journey. So we say, okay, if this is your first one, we want to not work with this kind of weapon that's a little more unpredictable, but maybe we'll work with, you know, uh, carcass strips. They look like they fucking suck to take, but they're predictable in the way that they break. So I know when we had Rush Rancid on our first show against Wade Allen, they had a carpet strip death match. And it was just a way to give him a taste for the death match without going full, okay, let's have a, Tokyo Tower glass death match
Right.
first time out. Right. So for us, I think for me, as someone who's trying to educate and eliminate stigma, it's important that we bring them along a little bit more slowly. Matthew Grant was on our New Noise Volume 2 show in August. He did end up working with tubes, but it's something we talked about. It's something that he wanted to do. And we made sure that, he knew, this is pulling back the curtain maybe too much, but how to take them, where to take them, how to respond to taking them. You're not going to take it across the face, but if you take it in the back of the head or over the back, like it'll break fairly easily. If you're not rolling around in it, then it shouldn't, you shouldn't get scarred up too much. Like there's things like that where we can talk about, you know, where they want to go with their deathmatch journey and how we can help them get there, but also how it's going to help service our product as well. So we don't like push anyone. We're not like, okay, you want to try deathmatch? Let's get in there and try this. It's okay, you want to try deathmatch. What are the parts of deathmatch that appeal to you? Okay, how can we work that into our show?
Well, I think that's important too, because in the grand scheme of things, it is wrestling, and wrestling, you need to be trained. You need to know, like, how to take a bump, and so the same would translate to deathmatch wrestling. You're not going to go in there and like you said, take a light tube across the face. Like you need to know how to get hit and how to absorb that, and that is completely without pulling back too much. Like it's just one of those things where it's like it's important, because you're if you don't, you're going to be risking injury to yourself, possibly to your opponent, even to the fans. So it's definitely a very important part of deathmatch wrestling.
Yeah, and we've seen in the past, and I think the most famous example might be David Arquette, Nick Gage, when I think David didn't fully understand what he was getting himself into, and that ended up the way it ended up. Now you can decide who was right and wrong in those, but I think that that's a great way to approach this, because it is an art form and it is violent and it can get out. It can be unpredictable. Like you could plan that thing out as to the nine, but then something just goes awry, or that table spot doesn't go the way you want it to, or the glass breaks wrong, and things change in people's minds. So I think that's a really cool way to approach going into a death match, maybe for your first time, saying, hey, let's not go crazy right away. Let's see what I love that. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's really a big part of how we can also appeal to talent who are kind of thinking about maybe trying their first death match. Like maybe they have seen a show that we're doing and they're like, oh, I'd like to try that. If we can spread the message that, hey, we're not going to push you to do anything you're not like comfortable with. Like we're going to work within your means, like whatever that is, whatever it is that you want to try, like we're open to that. And then we have other talent on our roster who, have been doing this for 15, 20 years. They know exactly what they're doing and they need very little help or assistance at all to, they know how to take a gusset in the head and go to work the next day, or whatever it is. They know you know what I mean? Like they know more than I could ever tell them in terms of how to do that stuff.
How do they come up with these spots, right? So I was watching one the other night, and it was a box fan that they took the cover off of, And I'm just like, where do you come up with these things to do in these matches, and then how do you test run these things in these matches? Because I'm like, some of these things feel like it's a one-shot deal, but I'm also like,
Yeah.
who was sitting around and they were walking through like Home Depot, like gusset plates, like we're seeing gusset plates throughout wrestling all of a sudden. How do you guys come up with that? Do you have like talent come to you and say, hey, I was sitting around the house and I saw this and I thought this would be a great thing to incorporate here?
Yeah, I think for us, and again, I can't speak for every promotion, we have a very collaborative mindset and collaborative team. Like the wrestlers know that they can come to us and be like, "Hey, I want to try this," and we're very lucky to have on our staff Billy, the deathmatch janitor. So we have someone who is his entire job is to make weapons. He cleans up the matches afterwards. He's extremely creative. He's always coming up with new stuff. I would put his what we call his Billy bats up against anyone, and they're essentially those plastic baseball bats, but they've got the tacks in them, and the way they come off because he uses like super glue to put them off, they come off in sheets. So you'll have like a sheet of tacks on someone's back, and it's just an insane visual, and it looks so good. So he is kind of he'd be a great interview for you guys as well, actually. But he's kind of our lead on coming up with kind of the creative stuff, but also, all of our talent is deathmatch fans as well. So if they see something and they want to message us, they can, or I'll message Billy. Like I was watching Homecoming and I saw the green painted light tubes that Shopsy had.
Oh
And
yeah.
I messaged Alex right away and I said, how can we do this safely? And he's like, I'm on it. So that's
Nice.
one thing that he's working on between now and November is how can we, do that kind of thing where, maybe that Kyle would have a green light tube or, PD Skills would have a certain light tube color that could be unique to him. Like we can take those ideas that other promotions are doing and be like, how can we make this our own thing? And he's brilliant at that.
And then just to follow up real quick on that, how do you? So you mentioned like maybe he'll have a certain light tube, and then other talents have a different color. How do you, when you put the card together? And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit when we talk about the actual card here for the show. How do you differentiate each match? Going, okay, we can't do the same spot every time. How do you do that in your meetings? Going, okay, this match we're going to focus heavy on light tubes. This one we're going to focus on tables and glass panes. Is there like a collective conversation ahead of time to make them different?
Yes.
But they're all like kind of the same, but different, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So for us, what I do is as soon as the card kind of comes together, I create a group chat with everyone. And then I make separate chats for every match. So the chat will be me and Billy and whoever's in the match. And we'll be like, okay, what do we want to do here? And then as something gets finalized, then we can put that back in the group chat. So for example, like on our last show, we had our home run derby death match, which was Wade Allen and some guy named John. And they used almost exclusively different kinds of bat related weapons or baseball related weapons. So for us, we have a theme to every match. Not so much on this show because we're working with Invoke, but on our other shows, every match has a separate theme, and it helps us kind of make each match feel different from each other, because I think a lot of death match can feel the same, especially no ring. Like if you don't have those themes, then essentially you're just hitting each other with shit until someone doesn't get up. So for us, like this was a way to try and make each match feel different and special.
Nice.
Okay, we're at the halfway point. We're gonna run tidbits, and then you're gonna join us for that. And then coming out of that, we're gonna talk about the upcoming show, September 19th, and we're gonna talk about some of the competitors who we're gonna be seeing. You can let us know a little bit about them. We're gonna talk about the show in general. So let's do this.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Players Tidbits.
Tidbits. Tidbits. Tidbits, players. Tidbits, air. Beep boop bop. Tidbits.
So I feel like we should explain, because anytime we have somebody join us and we run that,
every time you push the button, I'm like, we forgot to tell the guests that I'm not obnoxious.
We have a big time love for the movie 22 Jump Street. And
Okay.
the slam poetry scene in there, so we quote it regularly, and that kind of turned into becoming the intro video for Tidbits. So we're not just completely out there.
We are. Sorry.
Yeah, we are. Okay, so Tidbits, some upcoming match announcements. Prestige announced their Roseland show coming up. So we will preview this closer to the date, but you're going to see Danhausen and Matt Brannigan.
Nice.
Yeah, Midnight Heat defending against the Good Brothers. And as everyone found out, I'm a huge mark for the Good Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Most random thing about you.
Yeah, and Shayna Baszler versus Masha Slamovich was announced.
That's a match.
Yeah, I'm hyped for this. I don't know too many announcements that Shayna's had so far, but this is a big one, and I think these two are going to show out. So we got that. Deadlock Pro has some announcements coming up because this is happening in a day's time. So you can see Danny Luna versus you, Queen Aminata versus May Saruga, and Calvin Tankman versus Cedric Alexander.
Oh, I like that one too. It's a big good one.
After you finish watching this, you can turn into GCW and see the Rumble on the River as YDNP is taking on Leon Slater and Man Like Derice. This is in your backyard, Pluggo, so make sure you go to this one.
It is. I should try to figure it out. I got a pretty packed month of September, though, so I got to figure that out.
So we got that.
I got a lot going on.
Prestige and West Coast Pro announced their Strength Beyond Strength show November 7th in Los Angeles. We also have Jesse V, former LPW wrestler. He's going to be facing off in a 4-way match against O'Shea Edwards, who is one of my favorites, Bill Collier and Wes Barkley. And that's happening down in Paw Paw, Michigan for NCG. Brian Keith returning to West Coast Pro. He's going to be facing off with ETK.
I'm loving the Brian Keith indie runs here we're getting. I love that.
Me too.
He's making more dates happen.
Yeah.
We've got next weekend, Marcus Mathers versus Oro at GCW. Nice. Announced for the Homecoming Los Angeles, Effie versus Shotzi Blackheart. And 2 other big announcements for Revolver Wrestling. They've got a Texas death match between Jake Christ and Sky de la Cremosa. And the one I am very hyped for, first time ever, BDE versus Maya World. You know that we are fans of Maya World here on the show, and very excited for that matchup. So that's Tidbits for this week.
We did it. Yeah. You mentioned it. I should have brought it up while we were going, but we were powering through them. I think Shayna Baszler would be a fun if she wanted to get into deathmatch. I think she would be really good at it. She's got that style and that vibe and that just energy that I think would fit really well. I'm interested to see her matched up with Masha. That'll be a good time.
Yeah, I think Masha might be one of my favorite women wrestlers in the world right now. So, and Shane is obviously fantastic. I think that's a great match for sure.
Now, the show September 19th, Canadian Deathmatch, Invoke. You guys are putting this on, and it's happening at Lee's Palace, which is a very well-known venue in Toronto. Before we talk about the wrestlers involved, what does it mean to run a venue like Lee's Palace, where it has that history and just the I don't want to say aura, but it has that sort of mystique to it?
It's honestly overwhelming to think that we'll get to, in our first year, add our brand or our company to the history of that building. I remember going to wrestling shows there in the last few years, like Demand Lucha ran there, one of my favorite independent shows I've ever been to. And getting to put this show on with Invoke there, especially in a no ring, it's overwhelming is probably the best word for it, because it's a lot of pressure to make sure we deliver, and I think we will, absolutely. But it means a lot. It's really special, especially coming from kind of our punk rock do-it-yourself background, to get to run one of these iconic venues that I've been to many concerts at and wrestling shows. It's pretty special.
It's fun as a kid, watching Much Music, and they'd always say oh, this concert's happening at Lee's Palace.
Yeah.
And I'm watching that growing up, and the first time I'm ever going to step foot into Lee's Palace is to watch a no ring wrestling show, and I'm very happy about that. I love the fact that that's going to be my first introduction to Lee's Palace.
The only thing I caught there that I know is Much Music, and that's like some How I Met Your Mother fan, and they talked about that on one of the episodes. Because I'm from the States, I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds.
Our Canadian is showing through. It's essentially our version of MTV. And
I have this.
Home,
I have this problem being the stateside representative of Love Wrestling, which is out of Canada. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds awesome. I gotta make it up there sometime. And real quick to mention, so when you got the show going, you're at Lee's Palace, you're in Toronto, all out weekend. How do you, as a promoter, balance? I bet you got people coming out of the woodwork going, I want to be on this show. How do you balance? I want to ride with the people that got me here, but I also want to make a splash because I've got this opportunity in front of maybe a bunch of new fans. So how do you balance this card out that you've put together?
I mean, part of it is that Invoke is involved in that as well. So I don't have full say in who's on the card and who's not. But we had a few names that we were like, okay, these are the guys that we absolutely need to have on the card if we're going to be involved. PD Skills, our Canadian Deathmatch champion, was not available for this one, but we're super excited to have Wade Allen on this card. He's undefeated in no ring so far for us. Tyler Arrow, who is a fantastic talent, who's he's been to Quebec recently, he's been to Michigan. His name is really getting out there. That Kyle, who is someone that a lot of the American fans are starting to get to know through his work in Ruthless Pro Wrestling down there. These were just a few of the guys where we were like, you know what, we are happy to work the show, but these are the guys that we absolutely need to have on here. Excited to work with Brandon St. James again. A couple other names that, and we'll get into it more, that we were able to bring in because it's a bigger show, who we haven't been able to work with before, but that we've been wanting to, that have been on our list.
Yeah, we have the full lineup of wrestlers who are going to be there. The match announcements have been happening over social media, so we're not going to touch on that, but we will touch on some of the wrestlers taking part in this, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about them, because there's going to be some wrestlers that people may not be too familiar with, and this is going to be their first experience to them. And I think just a little sort of you're going in not completely blind. So we'll start off, we'll go bottom to top here.
Sure. Will Carroll is the leader of Total Fucking Chaos, which is a kind of punk rock enthusiast stable. They've got members all over the world, Australia, Texas. That Kyle is a member. TFC is going to have a huge influence on this show because you're going to have Will Carroll there. And you're also going to have that Kyle, who's a member. Brandon St. James is a member. And Maria Belmonte is also a member. So TFC has a huge influence on this show. They've been a big part of our growth so far. Will Carroll has the funniest voice in wrestling. He has this very, very high voice. And we debate all the time if Will Carroll's voice is a shoot or if it's real. But I've talked to him outside of wrestling, and it's the voice he uses. So if he's working us very well.
Elaborate plan.
Yes.
You gotta love that. All right. We also got Wade Allen, who you had mentioned earlier.
Yeah. We love Wade. Wade is, like I said, he's undefeated in no ring. He's kind of our Bam Bam Bigelow. He's just a big monster. He goes out there to kick ass. He loves working with glass. He loves beating people's asses. Physical, tough, in your face kind of guy who, he's not there to mess around. He's there to fight.
Yeah. Another name you had brought up, Tyler Arrow.
Yeah, Tyler Arrow, who, he's been a little bit all over the place. He was just in Quebec again. He's been down to the Michigan area, all over the province. He is, he's one of the most gifted wrestlers, I think, in Canada today, but definitely in Ontario, who also just happens to have a taste for the deathmatch thing. He's in a blood feud right now with Tyler Hill. They've been going back and forth. They just had a last man breathing match, which is essentially our take on the last man standing match. That feud feels like it's coming to ahead sooner than later. Hopefully he's able to focus for the show.
All right. Also got that Kyle's going to be there.
Yes, another member of Total Fucking Chaos. That Kyle has kind of been making his name across Ontario. He recently wrestled Green Phantom for IWS in Montreal, which I know
Okay.
was a big deal to him. He also, if you know Neil Diamond Cutter, he came up with the Shitstorm death match. He's now passed that on to Kyle. They had this incredible Shitstorm death match in Ontario earlier this year, and it was the first time that Neil Diamond Cutter had lost a Shitstorm death match. And therefore, as Neil Diamond Cutter is kind of wrapping up his career, he's passed that match off to Kyle. So Kyle is, I would say, one of the best, brightest young deathmatch talents in Canada today. He's
You know,
growing by leaps and bounds.
I don't know much about that Kyle, but he definitely looks like a Kyle. For sure. For sure.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or an insult.
No, he's like, yeah, that looks like a Kyle. Like, heck yeah. He looks like that's going to be awesome.
He's not a Kyle, he's that Kyle.
He's that Kyle. He's that Kyle of all the Kyles.
Yeah.
I think this is a name that I think a lot of viewers would be familiar with, and that is Cruel.
Cruel, yeah. Former IWTV world champion. He kind of has made his name in the ICW No Holds Barred promotion. A guy who will walk through fire to get what he wants in wrestling. We're super excited to have him up here, and we've already announced that it'll be him in a handicap match against Will Carroll and that Kyle. So we're gonna see where that Kyle stands against some international talent here. Can he hang with one of the best in the world? We're about to find out.
I'm very curious about the dynamic of a handicap match in a no ring death match sort of scenario. Like that to me is incredibly intriguing and a huge selling point for this match.
Yeah, I am excited about that too. I think, as we continue to develop our no ring scene, we're excited to try like tag matches in no ring and that kind of thing too, just to see like where can we push this art form too. But Will Carroll is a trained wrestler, but he's more of a manager. So we'll see how involved he gets. He may be scouring in the corner if I know Will the way I think I do. So who knows? It may end up more of a singles match.
You don't see a lot of handicap deathmatch matches, so that's definitely a nice fun wrinkle. I like it. Good idea.
You had mentioned, sort of the creative and artistic aspect to that, and I know Maria was somebody who, with what they are doing out in Quebec, a very artistic approach to wrestling, and I'm very interested to see that translate into the Canadian Deathmatch and all of that. So I'm very hyped for this one.
Yeah, me too. Marian Belmont, another member of TFC, making her Canadian Deathmatch debut. She calls herself the Queen of the No Ring. So we're going to find out, how she hangs with kind of our crew of no ring wrestlers. She's done a ton of no ring. She's been a leader, a pioneer in the no ring scene in kind of the Montreal area in Quebec. So we're going to see how that translates against some of the talent that we have here. I think she's got some high flying moves. She knows how to work with, the deathmatch weaponry. So I'm super excited to work with Maria on this.
You mentioned you like the art form and stuff. I got to shout out these graphics. These are fantastic. So whoever makes those up for you, if that's you or somebody else, these are really popping. I like them a lot.
Yeah, we so Invoke kind of worked on these. Maddie, who's part of our team, also helped with these. So as a collaboration, they've done a fantastic job kind of putting these together, and they really pop, and I think they feel different than kind of your typical wrestling graphic where this almost feels more to me like a concert poster, which is something we've intentionally wanted to do with a lot of our graphics. You've got MV Young up here. He's the trainer at 880 Wrestling out of Pittsburgh, which is a scene that I think is criminally underrated. Brandon St. James is also out of that scene. He's done a lot of no ring. He's been on some New Fear City cards, which we talked about last time, Blair. He is a fantastic no ring wrestler. He just challenged Effie for the GCW World Championship, which is a name obviously people know. MV Young is a big beefy boy who likes to throw down too. So it's going to be MV Young against Wade Allen, and that's going to be kind of your hoss fight for the night. They're just going to go out there and kind of beat the shit out of each other for a while and see who's left standing.
Hell yeah. All right. There we go.
Yeah, Pete Angelo, working on training as a wrestler. He's more of our comedian for the night, well-known comedian. He's also going to be the host for the show. Excited to have him up here. I think, he's someone that people in the comedy world kind of know. This is around the same time as the Just for Laughs Festival in Canada, in Toronto, excuse me. So yeah, I think, when he combined like his kind of punk rock ethic with his comedy and his love for wrestling, he's the perfect host for us on this one.
Nice.
Yeah, Izzy James, the NWA Texas champion. So last time we talked, Blair, we talked about how like I really love like the territory wrestling.
Yes.
And that's kind of where I kind of come from. I obviously was born at kind of the tail end of the territories, but have gone back and developed an appreciation for that kind of thing. So it means a lot to me, maybe even more than it should, to have the NWA Texas champion defended on our no ring card. It's a melding of all the things I love about wrestling. I love like the kind of that throwback of the NWA, and I love deathmatch and no ring. So to have Izzy up here, one of the best talents in the Texas scene right now, he can kind of move really well too. Like he's got some moves that are more designed for a ring. So I'm excited to see how his style will translate to the no ring. Can he still move around and use the space well to come out successful?
And that's a great shout too with the no ring style. I we kind of glossed over it, but when you take away the ropes and the rings, you kind of realize how much of that is used in a normal traditional wrestling match, how much that becomes a part of the story. But now you take that away and you got to get even more creative. So very exciting.
It's a different kind of match, a different type of creativity. You still, even without the ropes, you want to be able to use the space creatively to keep your opponent off guard. So whether it's, you're climbing up the walls to do stuff or using the stage. And that brings us to Brandon St. James, who you've got here, another member of TFC. He challenged PD Skills on New Noise Volume 1 for the Canadian Deathmatch Championship. I would argue the best match in Canadian Deathmatch history to this point. There was a sensational no-ring match, one of the best I've ever seen. He came very close. He used the space very well. He dove off the stage, put PD through a door. He is a talent that even though we bicker back and forth online about how we don't necessarily want an American to hold one of our titles as Canadian Deathmatch, we do love his work in the ring.
Why not? What's wrong with some Americans holding Canadian championships there, Shawn?
Nothing at all.
I take that personal.
Jesse Mack, who is an icon, a pioneer of women's death match. I think she doesn't get the respect she deserves just because she's Canadian, but she's been doing this a long time. She's a fantastic wrestler. She just beat her husband, Matt Cass, at New Noise Volume 2, and that kind of set her up for this opportunity. She was in the original Crazy 8 Invitational Tournament, which was our tournament to kind of kick off our promotion. Fantastic talent, tough as nails. We're super excited that she's on this one as well.
And last but not least,
a talent that I think you guys are probably familiar with as much as I am, Christian Starr. Fresh off working for Love Wrestling recently. Just got back from a short tour of Japan. We had him on New Noise Volume 1 against Tyler Arrow. They had a 2 out of 3 fall doors match. So it was essentially the first person to put their opponent through 2 doors. Christian Starr came very close to winning that, but just short. This time around, he's hoping to come back and get that first win in a no ring, and kind of set himself up to be more of a regular for us. He's a high flyer too, right? He's a young talent. I think
when Blair showed me these graphics before this interview, and he showed me this one. For those that know Christian Starr in the Love Wrestling realm, he is, baby face, clean cut. And then I saw this and I was like, I didn't know Christian Starr got down like this. So I did not respect his game in the sense that, so I am super intrigued to catch up on some of these matches because in our Love Wrestling circles, we know him as this just super fun baby face, high flying kind of guy. I didn't realize he was a deathmatch legend. So now I got to get educated. So shout out to Christian Starr.
So Pluggo, if you are on IWTV, you can watch our shows. This match, the Christian Star versus Tyler Arrow, is actually on our YouTube page as well. So if you go over there, you can watch their match. We chose that one specifically because we thought it gave kind of a different look to No Ring. Tyler Arrow and Christian Star are both guys who use the space super well, knew how to use the stage. And yeah, so that's why we chose to make that match available free.
Now we're going to wrap things up right away, but so for those, who are interested, who want to go check it out, give us the show details, so they can make their plans, they can grab tickets, all that stuff.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a ticket link, it's on our social media page. It's on Invoke's social media page. If you can't find it, send us a message. Like I said, we'll answer your messages as quick as we can. We'll get you those links. This is going to be a great show because we also have 3 bands on this show. So you got your 5 matches, your 3 bands. You've got Pete Angelo's comedy set. So you really are getting your money's worth on this show. I really believe that. September 19th, Leaf Malice in Toronto. If you're in town anyways, we're all out. You're going to need something to do the Friday night. You may as well come down and watch this kick-ass show with all this great talent. We just kind of spelled out what everyone's bringing to the table. We released 2 matches already, which we talked about briefly. And, we also, I'll put a plug in for our November 1st show. If you're in Hamilton and you prefer ring wrestling, or you like what you see and you want to come to our ring show, November 1st, we're back at the Germania Club in Hamilton for what promises to be another very, very violent show.
Shawn, where can the people find you on social media? If they have questions that they want to ask you about the shows, any of that stuff, where can they find you? Where can they reach out to? And where can they view the stuff? You mentioned YouTube, IWTV.
So Tyler Arrow versus Christian Star, the 2 out of 3 falls doors match, is on YouTube. We thought that, like I said, that would be a good an introductory match for people who are still new to the No Ring, still not sure about it. If you like what you see there and you've got an IWTV subscription, our first show, Crazy 8 Invitational, is up there. That's a ring show. New Noise Volume 1 and New Noise Volume 2 are both on there as well now. The DVDs are available through Deathmatch Outlaws, or send us a message. We have a Facebook page and we have an Instagram. If you type in Canadian Deathmatch, it'll be the first thing that comes up. Any questions you have, honestly, just send us a message because, like I said, we really are part of this community. We're not above this community. So we will answer your messages. We'll help you get tickets. We'll help you get whatever it is you need. If you need a shirt, if you need a DVD, if we've got buttons, patches, all that kind of stuff. However you want to show your love for Canadian Deathmatch, we've probably got a way for you to do that.
Oh, yeah. Now, for myself, you can find me up on all social media at Graymaker Wrestling Podcast, up on all podcast streaming platforms. You can find me every Saturday here with Pluggo. Maybe Shawn will join us again for another one. Who knows? But you can find me here. You can find me every Tuesday doing a Receipt of Hardcore up on Twitch, watching PWG matches. It's a lot of fun. So definitely check us out. Pluggo, where can they find you?
Before I tell you where you can find me, I just want to say, Shawn, thank you for coming on and joining us today. The deathmatch wrestling scene can be kind of, like you said, gatekeepy at times, and you were very open. And if you're thinking of dipping your toe into this thing, you were very informative on what to look for, what to think of. I'm definitely going to go to IWTV and check out that Christian Star match and some other ones and get myself a little bit more familiar with his game. But I appreciate that you were very open and honest with some of those questions that maybe somebody watching that isn't into the deathmatch scene will go, oh, you know what, maybe I will try it out. Maybe it's not as crazy as it seems on the internet wrestling community makes it out to be, but I appreciate that 100%. And we will absolutely have you back to promote anything you got coming up because you are fantastic. And you can find me at Pluggo on all social media platforms. You can find me Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Between Two Beards with JPJ, at 4 Exposure Pod on Twitter with Blair here. You can find all of my writing stuff on lovewrestling.ca. And then I don't know what else I got going on as this is recorded. I kind of just fly by the seat of my pants, but I do have a few interviews up on different podcasts. So just go to my socials. You'll see what I got going on there.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Shawn, for joining us as well. Make sure if you're in Toronto, you're going down, checking out that show. I'm going to be there. Come say hi. We'll bro down, and we're going to watch some incredible deathmatch wrestling. So thank you so much for joining us. Peace in the streets.